Hello. So, lots happened since my last video about Afghanistan. And one of the outstanding things that has happened pertaining to the debacle from overseas in the last month or two has been the story of Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller, a Marine that made a social media post while in uniform, while in his office, asking and calling for accountability from our higher leaders within the military. Now, I'm going to go ahead and comment on this and put my 2 cents out there because it's a nuanced position, and there's several things that I think a lot of people are missing in this situation. First of all, I'm in agreement with his assessment in his first video. I think he is absolutely right when he talks about how any combatant commander that has really any negative action whatsoever is immediately relieved for cause, and their punitive actions are taken against them. There's not a lot of wiggle room, and it is an absurdity that our highest echelons of leadership within the military do not fall under the same scrutiny that the rest of us do in the military. With that being said, I think he understood the consequences of what he did, and everybody else in the military also understands that while his gesture was the gesture of falling on a sword. He knew that he was going to be relieved. He knew that there was very high potential that the Uniform Code of Military Justice was going to be enacted against him in order for him to say his piece. And that's why that's why his words had credence in the first video. I understand that sometimes, as a combat leader or as a leader in general, you have to go against the grain and you have to fall on your sword. And I think that's what he was trying to do on his first video. Now, after that first video, I can't agree with anything else that he did. While I empathize with him and I understand that I'm sure that he's in a position where he thinks he's got nothing to lose, I think it takes away from the message of what he was trying to say in the first video by continuing to push more and more and more. See, usually how these things work, if there is something like this, like everybody recognizes, whether you agree with what he did or not, that he is standing for what he believes in, right? Like, that's what you want in a good leader. He's literally, in his mind, he believes he's exemplifying the very things that he was taught to be within the Marine Corps as a warrior leader. Now, I can't knock a guy for that. I can't knock somebody for standing up for what they believe in. And I acknowledge that there are times when you got to put your rank on the line and risk that break. I mean, that the entire apparatus of our military, particularly within the officer ranks, that is always on the table. And we are required to follow legal orders, lawful orders. But we're also required, if those orders are unlawful, to push back against them. But that comes with the risk of going to jail, or at least staying in jail until everything is adjudicated. Now, I believe he understood exactly what he was doing. I believe that type of message within our ranks, everybody was thinking it, and it needs to be acknowledged. Like, there is a sense of frustration within the ranks of the U.S. military, and there should be. There's no denying that our military has been used and abused for over 2 decades at this point. Actually, going back to Vietnam, like we have three in living memory, 3 debacles between Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan under our belt. And the people in the middle, like, fool me once, like, Vietnam happened. Okay, we learned our lesson from that, but we didn't learn our lesson from that. And I think that while Stu Scheller should have to pay a consequence for what he said, because that's just necessary for the good order and discipline within the military. What also needs to happen is there needs to be changes made. Like, yes, okay, like, let's pretend that he only did the first video. Okay, send him out to pasture at that point. Yeah, got it. Track him. But now we're going to send you out to pasture. He understands how that goes. Everybody else understands how that goes. But then institutionally, you work towards rectifying the situation, because he's performing a necessary evil, right? He's telling the emperor they're not wearing any clothes. And while you still have to maintain the good order and discipline within the ranks, and everybody acknowledges that that is a necessary thing, there also needs to be an acknowledgement that if you are too out of touch as a chain of command, you're going to lose your soldiers, and you're going to lose the entire institution. So him speaking his piece is supposed to serve that. Now, I can't get on board with anything that he said after that first video, because I think it detracts from the message of the first video. But anyways, I'm going to segue from this into something deeper. And because the very first video did touch on something that I think is going to have a serious impact on our military in the coming generation. We are a country quickly losing confidence in ourselves. And that's translating into the military. And I think that you're not going to see the same families. See, because what has happened since World War II is essentially, particularly since we became an all-volunteer military, it's the same family serve. So the demographic of people gets narrower and narrower and narrower as time goes by. Within the military, it is very common to hear generational service. You know, my parents, or my father, my mother, whatever, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, that is extremely common. Brothers and sisters serving. But outside of the military, that may be the last time that somebody served was in World War II. So as time goes by, you have a more stratified military class. And that class of people, that warrior class, which basically is what we have now. It's true for me. You know, I got 2 brothers that served. My father served. Both my grandparents served. 2 of my great-grandparents served. And it goes back for uncles, like huge numbers of people in my family served in the military, to include me. And that used to be an honored and revered thing. What's interesting is now my dad experienced the exact same thing that guys like me are experiencing now between Iraq and Afghanistan. And he tried to tell me. And in my naivety, I believed that we wouldn't ever, as a country, make the same mistake that we did with his generation. Not only did we did it twice, simultaneously. Now, I think the greater implications that we need to ask ourselves are, yes, we need warfighting institutions. We need robust and competent warfighting institutions. Okay, that's beyond doubt. But how do you foster a professional, robust warfighting institution in the wake of the last 50 years? Why would somebody like me, dedicating their entire lives to service, now is cast onto the political expedience of being a potential enemy of the state, according to some people? And also understand, even if that wasn't the case, knowing that if we are going to be used in the unfortunately the worst capacity, which the military is designed to do, which is to go to war, after 3 times in 50 years, how could we ever believe that our sacrifices aren't going to be squandered again, even if it's legitimate? Fool me once, shame on me. So I got fooled, and we only had one when I joined. And my dad tried to tell me. We're not particularly close, but that's one thing he tried to protect me from, because he understood the betrayal of being politically expedient. Well, now we've not only doubled down, we've tripled down on that. So my question is in the ensuing years that are coming, with a more and more destabilizing world, a rising Chinese Communist Party that is absolutely moving forward to preeminence on the global scale, and a declining United States. There's no doubt we're in decline. I'm not sure there's a way back from this decline. With all of that being said, what happens in the wake of things like within the ranks calls for accountability? If we don't have that accountability, you're not going to have anybody to fight the next big war. Why would they? Even if it's justified. Even, I've mentioned this before when it comes to demoralization. Even if China attacked our ally or Taiwan, or he sunk our fleet in Okinawa or Japan, who's going to join? Because we've been lied to, and our sacrifices have been squandered. Something like 76,000 Americans were directly killed as a result of bad policy decisions, killed and squandered between Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Over 500,000 wounded. And that's not counting the civilian casualties. Millions, plural, killed. Tens of millions displaced or directly affected. We are quickly losing any type of moral high ground we might have to be able, as an institution, to draw from. What happens when those who would fight for us say, not going to do it? I think that's a legitimate question we need to really ask ourselves. And if we don't get a handle on this accountability thing, it's only going to get worse. I don't think people are going to accept the lack of accountability for very much longer. We used to just kind of ignore it, but we can't ignore it anymore. The stakes are too high. Because we still have threats. As much as, the debacles in Iraq and Afghanistan leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth, the bottom line is we still got threats in the world. We're probably going to go to war with China in the next 20 or 30 years, for sure. That's going to turn into a global war. And it's going to be at a scale, it's going to get out of hand so fast, it's going to mimic World War I. It's warfare today with near pure, it is not only it's a almost 100% lethal. Every weapon system that's delivered, almost every one of those is 100% lethal. But we're going to run out of things to take out very quickly. Or we're not going to run out of things. We're going to run out of weapon systems to use that are going to have that 100% lethality. We're going to lose. I mean, even if we had a ratio of 1 to 5 on our air superiority capability. So for every strike aircraft that we have or air superiority aircraft that we have, and for every one we lose, we take out 5. Even at that rate, we're still going to have massive amounts of casualties. And because of our technological edge, it's going to pay dividends at first, but over time, we're not going to be able to replace those losses. It takes years to make those things. It's not like World War II where you can, pop out 500 tanks a day off of an assembly line. That's impossible today. Not only that, we don't even have the manufacturing capability to do it, even if we wanted to. We are in no position right now to be squandering any credibility within the military that we have left. And we're squandering it now. Our senior leaders right now, if they were moral agents, would take heed of what Lieutenant Colonel Scheller said and would at the very least pay lip service to going, yeah, we messed up. And, we can talk about the political bias that maybe is existing within the higher echelons right now. But the bottom line is that coming from the bottom, like coming from the mid ranks and having my heart with the lower ranks, this message for you all in the higher echelons is, if you don't do something about this and show an act of good faith, you're going to lose your military. Guys like me, I am not telling people to join the military. My children are absolutely not joining the military. Not after what's happened. I really believed. And I saw that goodwill, that willingness and want and want to make a difference that a huge number of people that join our military have. They do it they're good faith actors. They really are. They really, really want things to work out. They want to be protectors of those who can't protect themselves. And that has been squandered and bastardized and turned into something not worthy of the sacrifices that have been made by our highest echelons, both within the military and within the political apparatus. And the American people have been oblivious to this entirely. So we got to do it on our own. Well, here's the deal. You can't fight the next war, the next big one, without the war fighters, those that are those warriors that are going to get in there and get after it and do the things that need to be done. And we won't survive the next big war if we don't have generals who are willing to be responsible for their actions. We will not survive that war. If we don't get ahead of this, we already have to do damage control with our allies because we are looking extremely weak right now. And our allies are starting to look elsewhere for security guarantees on a global scale. And I don't blame them. They should be, because we do look weak, and we are weak right now. The next big fight, and it is coming, will determine whether this country survives and then there's a new global order in the wake of that. And the only way that we can survive that is to get a handle on things right now and stabilize what's going on in this country and rebuilding our military and the faith within our military. Because huge numbers of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines have lost faith. They don't believe anymore. They are absolutely incredulous about how our sacrifices were completely and totally squandered. And then in the wake of that, the spitting in the face of, oh well, because that's essentially what we've got from our Secretary of Defense. So we got it from our Joint Chiefs of Staff. And that's what we got from most general officers, is this scorn for the calls of accountability. That won't go on for very long. You will not have an action. You'll have a warfighting institution in name if you keep that up. So that's my 2 cents on the situation. I hope the best for Lieutenant Colonel Scheller. I hope that he's able to quietly move on. I think his first message was necessary, even though he understood, and I think he's correct in his understanding, that he should have been relieved in the wake of that. But that's just how it works in the military. That's just how it works. But the message that he sent on that first message was necessary, and I think he was acting in good faith with that, and that should have been enough. Unfortunately, everything that has been said afterwards, I think, it's taking away from the impact of the gesture that he made in that first message. And nobody's perfect, and I'm sure he's got his reasons for doing what he's doing. I can't judge the man. I'm not in his situation. I'm not going to judge the man. But I think that ultimately he is on to something. He's on to something. He is feeling the pulse of the sentiment within the ranks. And I think he's accurate in his assessment about how that's going. So I don't know that this is going to dissipate over time, because to me it just seems like everything's escalating, and it just escalates more and more and more and more and more, and that's not good. The military can overreact, and if they overreact to this, you're going to be looking at like mutiny in the next couple of years, or just a massive drop in quality of a service member, because nobody of quality is going to want to join. So anyways, that's my assessment. If you've got anything to add, please comment. If you disagree, by all means, let me know. And if there's anything else you think I should cover, also let me know. You guys have a good day. Take care.